Good evening. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. All right. First and foremost, I want to thank Joan for the kind invitation to be with you here this evening. Joan's got a tremendous reputation around the state of California, and when she asked me if I would be willing to come out here, and I said I would be willing to go anywhere where Joan asked me to go. So let's see Joan. So I thought I would give a little flavor of kind of who I am. For those of you that don't know, I represent Santa Barbara, Ventura, and parts of LA County in the state Senate. And I'm running in an open congressional seat. I'm sure all of you know that we had redistricting, and these are new districts across the state of California. And I'm running an open district in Ventura County. If you know where, if you've ever been to the Reagan Library, I live one exit from the Reagan Presidential Library. Every now and then, thank you for your service to President Reagan. Every now and then, I get discouraged when I'm in Sacramento. Obviously, we're fighting a good fight in Sacramento, and a lot of times we don't win. From time to time, I go back up to that Reagan Library, one exit from my home, and I get re-inspired because it shows that one person can really make a difference in the future direction of this country. And boy, do we miss President Ronald Reagan. So when this seat opened up, I represent this entire district in the California legislature. There isn't a part of this district that I have not represented. Early on, when the seat became available, the current incumbent was elected in 1986 originally, decided not to go forward and take on this task because it is a difficult seat. Nancy Pelosi, your hometown congresswoman, hopefully our candidate gives her a little problem up here, but your hometown congresswoman projected that she was going to win the gavel by going after 3 different states, and that's how her path to the speaker's gavel is to go after California, Illinois, and New York. And I'm happy to report to you, we're doing extremely well, and we're going to make sure Nancy Pelosi remains the minority leader. To give you a little flavor of kind of who I am, the best way I could describe kind of who you'll have in me, if I'm lucky enough to get across the finish line in 54 days, is to kind of tell you what guides me as a person. The best way I can describe that is, a lot of people talk about heroes in life. Some people talk about, and I think people use that term very loosely in terms of hero. Some people talk about movie stars. Some people talk about sports athletes. Let me tell you who the hero is in my life. My hero is my father, Sergeant First Class Donald Strickland. See, my dad served in Korea and Vietnam and fought for the very freedoms and liberties we enjoy today. And after he got injured in Vietnam, he became a drill sergeant right here in Monterey County at Fort Ord Army Base. And that's where I was born. I was born in Fort Ord to a dad who's a drill sergeant. Now you can imagine what it was like growing up as a kid with a dad as a drill sergeant. In fact, every minute I was late growing up as a kid, I was granted a week. No one's wondering why I was on time here this evening. It drives my staff nuts, and my wife, but I'm still early everywhere I go. And on top of that, when I was growing up as a kid, none of my friends wanted to go to my house. They used to call my home Strickland. And to this day, I'm still, my dad's almost in his 80s, and he can still whoop my butt. There's no question. But I had a very disciplined father, and there's no question that I'm in the state Senate and 54 days away from being a congressman because of the loving support and the discipline of my father, but also my mom, who's an immigrant from Germany, who met my dad when he was stationed over there. I had very supportive parents that helped me get to where I am today. But the reason why I share that is the most important lesson I learned from my dad growing up as a kid was it's up to every generation to leave your city, state, and nation in a better spot than what you found. And ladies and gentlemen, I believe this today is the first time in American history where that's in question. Are we going to leave a better generation to the next generation? Every generation before us left a better country to the next generation. Now, I've been asked many times why I do this. Why am I running? I've always been what we call a #1 target. I've always had a very tough race in every one of my elections since I got elected when I was 28 to the State Assembly back in 1998. And the reason is very simple. is because we need to fight for something greater than ourselves and fight for the next generation. It crystallizes for me, I'm a dad. My little girl, Ruby, we call her Ruby Ruth, she's turning 7 in October. And my boy, we call him Tiny Tony. My boy just turned 5 this week. And when you see my boy and see his smile on his face, the optimism in his eyes, you know, the reason why we're doing what we're doing is because I want my boy and my girl to have the same opportunities that I had as a kid here in California. I want them to recognize the country that I grew up in. I want them to have that same opportunity, and through hard work, you could achieve anything. That's the American dream. It doesn't matter where you start out in life. After my dad retired from the military, he was a maintenance man. Through hard work, you can achieve anything in this country. But we're not leaving the next generation with the debt we're leaving them. And we don't have to look further back than just 2 days ago on September 11th, the anemic response from this current president. You know, I believe in Ronald Reagan's philosophy, peace through strength. We need to project strength, both economically and militarily. And what's happening in Washington is very frightening. Very frightening. When you look at our defense budget, 18% of our budget right now in the federal government is in defense, but 50% of the proposed cuts are in defense. Ladies and gentlemen, you look at history, the nation with the strongest Navy has always had the strongest economy. That's why China is building up their Navy today. And now more than ever, when we talk about foreign policy, what's going on in the Arab Spring, what's going on in Iran, what's going on in North Korea, we can't afford those cuts. We need to be vigilant and strong. But in order to do that, we have to grow our economy. In order to do that, we have to be strong economically. And it's been a disaster. Right now, when you look at the unemployment rate that's going around the state of California and this nation, we have the longest time in our nation's history since we've been recording it, where unemployment rate has been over 8%. And when Obama passed the stimulus plan, he said that when we pass the stimulus plan, unemployment will be always under 8%. But it's not just the unemployment rate, it's the underemployment rate. There's a lot of people working a lot harder for a lot less right now. And what we need to do is reawaken this industrial giant. We need to put people back to work. In order to do that, it takes leadership. And one of the things that I want to do as your next congressman is to challenge the American people like Ronald Reagan did and many other statesmen. We're missing statesmen these days. I like to talk about John F. Kennedy. When John F. Kennedy said we're going to send a man to the moon by the end of the month, end of the decade, in 1961, he didn't say that for Democrats, he didn't say that for Republicans, he said that for Americans. And we came together to achieve that goal. The biggest goal, I think what we need to do is be energy independent here in the United States. You want people back to work? Right now, just the Keystone Pipeline, of what Obama cut, that would create 1 million jobs. But on top of that, think about our policies that are going on right now in Washington. We have no energy plan. We don't know where we're going, and we're funding both ends of a war. We're sending billions of dollars to countries that fund terrorist networks. We're buying their oil, and they're funding terrorist networks. We're paying for both ends of a war right now. When that doesn't make sense, because we have the abundant energy here at home, we have the natural resources here at home, and we need to develop, and we need to do whatever we can in all forms of energy. I'm a big renewable energy guy. We need natural gas, we need oil, we need everything. All the above strategy. Not only is that an economic issue that will put people back to work, but it's also a national security issue. And now more than ever, we need to make sure that we produce energy here at home and drive this economy. Think about our policies right now, and most people don't think this through. We said no to doing the Keystone Pipeline with Canada, but we're buying from Hugo Chavez. How does that make sense? I mean, it's because we lack a policy. Now, another area where we can grow our capital and put people back to work is right now what we have is American corporations that are investing overseas, China, Asia, Europe, South America. If those American companies, corporations, want to bring that money back to the United States, we punish them with a 35% tax. So what happens is these American corporations don't bring the money back and they reinvest in those other countries. You want a true stimulus program? If you want to grow this economy, we have over $1 trillion of American corporations investing overseas. That if we encourage them and do whatever we can to bring those resources, that $1 trillion back into our economy, let them reinvest in American jobs, in California jobs. That's what we need to do. We need to stop this program, and we need to do what we can to bring those dollars right here. And that's a free market way of bringing jobs and build this economy. Now, I was just on the radio the other day, and the left, they're pushing back, and they say, well, are they going to create those jobs, or are they going to just put it on their balance sheet? And my answer was, they're going to do both. We'll create those jobs. When there's a product, they're going to create those jobs, but also, it's not that bad that they put it on their balance sheet. Think about another part of this problem in this economy today. A lot of people made investments in, if you look at CalSTRS, CalPERS, your independent retirement account, we invest in these American corporations. Another part of the economy and the lack in the faith in the economy was a lot of Americans invested in very, what they thought was not risky investments for their independent retirement account. And they saw their retirement go down. And now a lot of folks have to work an extra 5, 10 years when they plan for the future, and they thought they planned for the future. Now they have to work an extra 5, 10 years. On top of that, with the home prices, a lot of folks saw their home, the biggest investment that most families make is in their home, and now they're underwater in their home. So by bringing this back and putting it in the balance sheet, you're going to actually increase that return on investment. And again, it's not just your independent retirement, it's CalSTRS, CalPERS, and all these investments that everybody makes. They make them in the American corporations, and that will help if they put it back on their balance sheet. So what is really lacking right now is leadership. And I will tell you, every politician comes to you every 2 years. You've probably been active in this group for a long period of time. Every 2 years, elected officials tell you this is the most important election of your lifetime. I will tell you, I believe 54 days from today is the most important election of our lifetime. It's for the heart and soul of the country that we're fighting for and the country that we grew up in. So 54 days from now, you don't want to look back and say, I didn't give it everything I had to make sure we change the direction of this country. We absolutely have to win the White House. Absolutely have to get Governor Romney as the next president of the United States. But on top of that, we need to make sure we secure the Congress and make sure we pick up the United States Senate to take this country back for my kids, your kids, and our grandkids. Now, I told a few folks, I played semi-pro basketball, I played college basketball. I've been playing team sports my whole entire life. You can probably tell I'm a little tall, but I've been playing team sports my entire life. And the best analogy I like to use is at the end of the game when I was growing up as a kid, when it was a close game, the coach would call timeout and drop the play in the huddle. I don't know for those of you that don't follow the sport, but the coach would call timeout and they'll drop the last play for the last 10 seconds of the game. Growing up as a kid, ever since I could remember, I always fought the coach and said, drop the play, put the ball in my hands, and we'll win the game. I've been like that ever since I was a little kid. Draw the play, put it in my hands, and we'll win the game. Ladies and gentlemen, the ball's in all of our hands. Because here in California, these are the pivotal races. You have Ricky Gill not too far from here. But you can prevent Nancy Pelosi from having that gavel. If you do everything in your power, the ball's in our hands. It's a team sport. Ricky's name's on the ballot, my name's on the ballot, Abel Maldonado's name's on the ballot. But we can't do it alone. We need your help. And, we're not asked to do a lot. I mean, if you look at history, and I'm a big history buff, when you talk about the American Revolution, when you talk about throughout time, the greatest generation of World War II, we're not asked anything, or my father in Korea and Vietnam, we're not asked anything pales in comparison to previous generations. But in the next 54 days, if you believe like I do, that this is the most important election of your lifetime, you need to dig a little bit deeper, do what you can to help those congressional candidates right here at home to prevent Nancy Pelosi from being Speaker of the House. And I will tell you this, my flyers are right here on each one of your tables. I would encourage you to write a contribution to my campaign, but not just my campaign. These congressional candidates need your help. And I will tell you, in January, when we get sworn in, a new Romney administration, and I get up there into Washington, D.C., I'll tell you, you're going to have goosebumps because you're going to say, I had a part to play in taking back this country for our next generation. So with that, Joan, thank you so much for having me here today. I really enjoyed it. And I'm sorry, I have an early morning tomorrow, as you can imagine, in the district, and I have to catch the flight in Oakland. So I apologize, but happy to answer any questions you might have. Sir?
What about drilling in California and California shale?
Yeah, no, I think we need to make sure that we have to understand, like, for example, my Senate district, Santa Barbara, it's a no-no because of the 1969 oil spill in Summerlin. But the technology's improved dramatically since then. We have to make sure, look, I'm a pro-environment guy, but we have to have a balance. For example, when you look at the Central Valley, and we are not feeding the world, I have generations of farmers from the San Joaquin Valley come to my office in Sacramento, say we fed the world for generations, we can't even feed our kids because of this little Delta snow. At some point, we have to be pro-environment and pro-economy. You don't have to be either or. We have to make sure we're environmentally sensitive. But you're putting your head in the sand if you don't think that we have the ability to do both. And we have to bring in the natural resources. We have new technologies in natural gas. We have an abundant amount of natural gas. I believe in all of the above. We have wave energy. We can even make energy from algae. There's so many different ways that we can make energy. That when we have that energy here at home, I think we're foolish not to take advantage of our natural resources here at home instead of, again, sending our money, the billions of dollars, to countries that fund terrorist networks. I mean, it's a national security issue, it's an economic issue. So I would definitely take a lead. Any other questions? Ma'am.
Hi, Senator. So Democrats keep talking about this war on women and all of that, whatever. So can I get your opinion? What do you think of all of that?
Well, you know, my wife will get mad at me, but I said the other night to my wife, I love women. She says, don't say that. Look, I mean, they're trying, what's happening with President Obama? 4 years ago, you heard hope and change. Now what you're seeing is hope to change the subject. Because what they're going to do is they're going to try to divert anything they can away from the economy. When I'm walking door to door and asking voters what they think is the most important issue, and they're having a tough time putting food on the table for their kids, they're not talking about the war on women. You know, this is a made-up thing where they're trying to divert the attention away from what is really happening right now. A weak economy, unemployment rate, underemployment rate, and people are really scared right now because they don't think they can put food on the table. Not only that, 4 years ago, Obama's one of his biggest support base was college-age kids. By the way, 4 years later, they're graduating and can't find a job. My guess is they're not going to be turning out to the same number as they did 4 years ago. But what's happening now is we need to fight back. We need to stay on offense. The best defense, and I learned this in sports and same in politics, the best defense is good offense. We can't let them change the subject. We need to bring it back to the economy and the failed leadership of what's going on. And by the way, they'll also bring the Republican Congress. Obama had almost 60 votes in the United States Senate and an overwhelming vote in the House of Representatives for 2 years. He passed a brutal health care plan that takes you away from decisions with your doctor, and it also passed a stimulus plan that put your children and grandchildren in debt. We need to fight on the offensive. So we're going to be doing that day to day. And again, when I'm walking door to door, that's not the number one issue, and they're trying to bring it up, and we need to always bring it back to jobs in the economy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can we ever bring manufacturing jobs back to California? Value-added manufacturing, Michigan's doing it, and we.
The answer is yes. I mean, if you talk about, I think what drives an economy is small business and manufacturing. And when we talk about California specifically, look, the labor force, it's going to be hard with just the labor cost. But there's things that we do here in California that are silly in terms of encouraging people to set up their manufacturing jobs here in the state. One example, we charge a sales tax on manufacturing equipment. In fact, we're only one of 3 states in the nation that charges sales tax on all that equipment in manufacturing. In manufacturing. So, by the way, we're the only ones on the West Coast that does it. So what I did is I've introduced a bill every year in Sacramento to eliminate that sales tax on manufacturing equipment to encourage manufacturing to come here. Well, it gets voted down all the time. So I did a thing that I thought I could do to show that it works and take a half loaf. And then this is one of those things where I think it's important to work with the other side and figure out how to move the ball forward even though it's a half loaf. I worked with a guy named Alex Padilla, who's a Democrat from Coima outside the San Fernando Valley. He was willing to do it for renewable energy as well as biotech. He had biotech in his district and renewable energy, and I had biotech in my district. Amgen's the largest employer in my district. So we were able to work it for those 2 sectors to do it for manufacturing those 2 areas. Now, some of my Republican colleagues weren't on board originally because they wanted for every sector. And obviously the Democrats on his side didn't want to do it because they don't believe it works. We were able to bring in a coalition. I was able to convince enough of the Republicans for a small group of Democrats to get it done. Now what we're seeing is we're getting more of those manufacturing jobs in those 2 sectors, and we're proving it works in terms of growth in the economy. Now, hopefully, I'm leaving Sacramento, but hopefully we do well on the state Senate side as well as the Assembly side, where we can show that it works and move the ball forward. A lot of the folks on the left, as you know, they don't believe it. They believe, again, when we talked about the foreign companies, they believe anytime they cut taxes, they're going to lose that revenue. And I penned a story that I thought I crystallized it for folks who don't follow politics every day. Mr. Moreno, who bought the Angels, Anaheim Angels, when he bought the Angels, he went in and he cut ticket prices in half, he cut beer prices in half, and the management around him, the management team around him says, you can't do that, you're going to lose so much money. He says, don't you ever think by volume we're going to actually pick up? And actually, their attendance rose dramatically, and they made more money by cutting it. That's laughter curve right there. I'm a big Art Laffer guy, and we need to show in real world how it works. Now, some will put their head in the sand, but we just need enough to get that agenda moving forward. My chief of staff's like. Anyways, let me conclude by saying, look, you believe in what we have to do in the next 54 days. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. You'd be doing other things. But if I can make one more plea, if you're willing to help out our campaign, you can do it online. You give checks to Joan. But I'm not just asking for myself. I'm asking for all these important races that are before us. And we need to make sure we win 54 days from now. We need to turn out the vote in all these critical seats. And we need to do whatever we can, because the last thing you want to do is be a few percentage points short and say, I didn't give it my all. We have the ability to change it right now. The most valuable commodity you have in a campaign is time. We can maximize the next 54 days and do whatever we can, because this is the most important election of our lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Strickland. We look forward to welcoming you back as Congressman Strickland. So now it's time for the beautiful Olympic Club buffet. The club has asked that you go one table at a time, and the server will let the next table know when it's time for you to go. So let's start with table number 1 in the back. And if you want more wine or drink, please get your drink tickets now from Wanda Zachary, who is sitting in that very patriotic red and white outfit.
Sorry. Oh, that's okay.
Wanda, you want to raise your hand so they know who to buy their tickets from? So please get them now, because once we get back in, Wanda will...